Today, a major bipartisan housing bill takes effect despite President Trump's refusal to sign it into law in protest. Trump withholding a signature over his demand for the Senate to pass a controversial voter ID bill. One Democratic lawmaker says Trump's decision could hurt his own party.
He does not care about Republican members of the House and Senate, how it reflects upon them when costs are up and people can't afford health care. People are shopping gas stations. He doesn't give a damn about that. And his own Republican members know it and will suffer for it.
Let's bring in former communications director for Representative Hakeem Jeffries, Michael Hardaway, and former Trump State Department appointee and MS Now political analyst, Matthew Bartlett. Good to see you guys as always. Let's get into this here, Matthew. The president said straight up he won't sign the housing bill, but didn't end up vetoing it either. Can he still take credit for it? I mean, why is he being so stubborn and hanging on to the SAVE Act when it clearly doesn't have the votes right now?
Yeah, Alex, what a mess. As you said, this Congress is really not doing a lot on the priority issues that Americans feel, namely on affordability, cost of living. And one of the biggest issues is housing. So finally, both parties in the House and the Senate move. And what happens? The president refuses to sign it. It will become law. Listen, candidly, I'm not sure it will have a large effect on the massive structural issues that we have, not just in the economy, but certainly related to housing. But the notion of caring, of doing something that the president has just now jettisoned and just shown a stubborn, callous approach, making statements about how he doesn't care. It's a big yawn. Again, it shows a lack of understanding, a sympathy for Americans, and instead this insistence on the SAVE Act, a horrible piece of legislation that he's not trying to get more Democrats on. He's aiming the cannon inside the GOP tent and going after his own party. So again, a true mess here.
So, Michael, can Democrats take the lead on getting credit for this housing bill? How are voters going to see an actual bipartisan action to address affordability?
They can and they must take the lead. The housing market in America is a mess. You've got, for the first time in American history, a quarter of home buyers are cash buyers. What that means is that average people like us can't even afford to buy a home, and you have a small number of rich people who are buying everything. And so I think for Democrats, they have to message this and take credit for this, since the president has decided that he doesn't want to take credit. They have to communicate to people that they are working actively to improve their lives. That's what this election is about. The problem Republicans have is that, what are they telling voters they've done for them this November? Donald Trump is not on the ballot. And so Democrats have to take the credit, and they have to message that they are doing something actively to improve people's lives.
You know, Matthew, Axios reports that Senate Republicans are spending heavily to maintain their lead in the chamber before the midterms. This as Democrats are gaining more confidence in their chances. Will Trump's growing feud with the Senate and the focus on what he wants rather than what the party wants, will that ultimately undermine the party's efforts?
Yeah, I mean, that is the question right now. It seems as if even with extreme gerrymandering efforts, the House will likely go into Democratic hands. And now the Senate, which should no way go Democrat, could. I would argue the pathway has maybe narrowed in places like Maine, and now people are looking at maybe even Michigan becoming a potential pickup. But ultimately, the atmosphere right now is incredibly against not just the president, but the party in power, Republicans. And as you said, affordability, the economy continues to be the number one issue. We have no message on that. And now a muddled, messy international message around a war that cannot either be won or ended. None of this bodes well for the party in power, Republicans. We will see how this shakes out in the midterms.
So, Michael, there's a new poll from YouGov, and it shows just how much Trump is struggling among independents. Over 70% disapproving of Trump's job so far. Is that enough for Democrats to win in November? I mean, is their frustration with Trump enough to deliver the sweeping Capitol Hill changes that Democrats hope for?
It is. It gives them a fighting chance in the Senate. Democrats will take the House in November, but I think they have a chance. They must net 4 seats in the Senate. And the fact that 71% of American independents disapprove of Donald Trump is problematic for him, because independents are really the bellwether for Senate elections. And so if Democrats can continue to push the idea that prices are up because of Donald Trump, 5 million Americans lost health care this year because of Donald Trump and the Republicans, and this economic mess that we're all suffering through is because of Donald Trump, then I think they have a chance to do well in terms of possibly taking control of the Senate as well.
But, Matthew, can I also ask you about, in that same poll, 60% of voters say the president is using his office for personal gain. Does Trump care even a little bit about people seeing him this way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, what do you say? 60% of voters there have their eyes open, read newspapers, watch MS Now. It is just brazenly apparent that Americans continue to struggle to buy groceries, gas, as we said, housing, healthcare. Yet if your last name is Trump, you're doing incredibly well through deals with the family, deals overseas, and then just these vanity projects that he continues to put his own personal priority. Much of this is on aesthetics around the White House or D.C. It is shocking that this is a president that is trying to either help the public or help his own party. It's a very tough argument to make. Solving these issues are tricky, but it's even more tricky if you're not even trying.
You know, Matthew, there is progress on his vanity projects, right? Those being, renaming his local Florida airport after him, his massive arch clearing yet another key hurdle. Will these vanity projects exclusively define Trump's presidency? Will they be his lasting legacy when he's out of office? And if not, what else will?
I mean, maybe they will, in so much as the American public was just absolutely shocked that a president gave up on trying to, again, help the country and only tried to help himself with such, weird vanity projects. I think many of these will either be stopped, taken down, reversed. His legacy will not be lasting, but again, will be probably scraped off many of these buildings here. So it's just nothing bodes well for the Republican Party right now. And again, much of this is because of the president's own actions.
Hey, Michael, to Matthew's point about how much the Trump family, but specifically the president, is making money in the office, any guardrails to keep this from happening again with another president?
They have to put them in place. I think when Democrats take control of Congress and certainly, hopefully, if they win the White House in 2028, they have to spell out the idea that the president can't be trading stocks like this president has. And the president's children and himself can't be engaging in international business deals that the United States government has sanctions on and other things. And so they have to spell this out because this can't happen again. But I'll say one last thing. Imagine being a Trump voter in Pennsylvania. You may have lost your job. Your brother may have lost his job. And you're watching Donald Trump make billions of dollars right now and get a free airplane from the other side of the world instead of doing anything to help you. That is their biggest problem in November.
Okay, Michael and Matthew, I'll see you guys next weekend and look forward to it. Thank you.